welcome back, readers. Today we have another weekly download. So let's start off with Best Frenemies Forever, which was by Megan McCafferty, and it was the one in the last video I was looking forward to reading the most. I'll put that up here for you. And I was actually a little disappointed with this book. I mean, it was good. It was entertaining. However, the main characters, Sophie mainly, I wasn't a huge fan of hers, and I feel like I might have liked her more if I hadn't read Be True to Yourselfie first. These two books kind of run concurrently at the same time, and just knowing what happens in that other book kind of makes me dislike the main character of this one more. So I feel like I might have liked it more had I not read that one first, even though that kind of was the first book in the series. That being said, I love Megan McCafferty, and I'll read pretty much anything she writes. I'm going to eventually reread the Jessica Darling series, which is one of my favorite book series, like, of all time. So looking forward to that, seeing if they're just as good as I remember. So let's move on to some of the other stuff I've read. So I just finished reading book 1 in the Sensitive series by Rick Wood. And it's essentially about a young guy named Oscar who starts seeing things that nobody else can. And he finds out that he is essentially a psychic. And he meets up with two other people, April and Julian, who are also sensitives and can do other sorts of things than like paranormal things that, you know, Oscar can't. And they are essentially trying to help a demon-possessed 10-year-old girl and save her from, well, being possessed, which is essentially this book. It was good. Like, it was well written. However, I wasn't a huge fan of the main characters so much in this book. Like, just when we just meet, like, April and Julian, they're kind of a-holes. They're not very nice, and I feel like it's unnecessary for them to behave the way they do the majority of the book. I'm hoping as I read the series more, and now that they're friends with Oscar, they'll be not such assholes, but so I'll have to continue reading and see. I would give this overall a 7 out of 10 and say check it out. I'm looking forward to reading more in the series to see if that part of the character development does get better, so we'll see what happens. Alright, so next I started rereading the Remnants series by Katherine A. Applegate. So I read the first 2 books, which are the Mayflower Project and Destination Unknown. Essentially, the end of the world has happened, and a select group of people have been able to get on a spaceship to kind of like save the human race. And we're essentially following the survivors of Earth, when the majority of the main characters are, young adults, teenagers, mainly because these books are written for, that age group, middle grade age group. I've read these before and I really enjoyed them, so I'm giving them a reread, seeing if they're still as good. And they're entertaining. I quite enjoyed them. I would give them about a 6 or 7 out of 10, and say if you have kids who are preteens, young teenagers, I'd say have them check it out. This is the first one. This is the same author who wrote the Animorphs series, so there's that as well. There's like a million of those books out there. So I'll let you know how they are as I continue to read them and see if they continue to be as good as they were when I read them in high school, essentially. So I read the second book in the Restoration series by Terry Blackstock. This is Nightlight. She's a Christian author, and so the books kind of follow or center around Christian characters and their faith and all of that. This also is kind of like, not necessarily like the end of the world, but there's been a pulse that has wiped out all the electronics, and the main family is trying to survive without electronics or anything like that within the community. So this is the second book. They're all right. She's a good author, and I like reading her books. Sometimes the characters can be a bit much. They kind of like go one way or the other. Like in their characterization, so that's kind of a little bit on the downside. But I would say if you like Christian fiction, you like kind of like apocalyptic books that don't necessarily involve like zombies or anything like that, then I would say go ahead and check them out. The first book was called Last Light, so go ahead and check that out. Alright, so we've got some more Tami Hoag, right? So we have two of the romance ones. We have The Last White Night, Taken by Storm, and a mystery one, Dark Paradise. So out of these, I think my favorite was The Last White Night. The interesting thing about this one is it's actually a sequel to another book that I had read. She's basically the sister of one of the characters in another book. I forget what the name of that is, but I didn't realize it until I was like halfway through the book and she started talking about her family and these other characters. But this one's my favorite. I'd give it an 8, and then I'd say like maybe a 6 or a 7 on this one. I just wasn't a huge fan of some of the play between the characters, the main characters. Like half the book, the main character, he was doing things, and I couldn't help thinking to myself, this is not romantic. You're not being romantic. And he was just kind of, he wasn't like a bad character or like mean or malicious, but he kind of doesn't have a sense of like reality almost. Like he's a nice guy, a charming guy, but it's like half the things he does, it's like, stop it. This isn't romantic. Like, knock it off. But that being said, maybe a 6, say, check it out, especially if you like, you know, cheesy romances. This one, Dark Paradise, I kind of would put it in the same category as the other one I read, Still Waters. It's all right. It's not necessarily the best. Just like the last one, like the tension between the two main characters is a little bit much. Like they start off like kind of hating each other and being mean to each other, and then they like fall in love with each other. But I feel like that's kind of been overdone, and that was like almost what was in that first one I read. It was still good, the action and suspense and, you know, a bit of romance as well. So I'd give this one also maybe a 6 and say check it out if you like her books. So the last thing we're going to talk about is I read some more of the Cooper Kid Adventures. We got a bunch of them. So we have books 3, 4, 5, and 6. So, I mean, if we're looking at them as a whole, we have the first one, The Tombs of Anak, and then Trapped at the Bottom of the Sea, The Secret of the Desert Stone, and The Deadly Curse of Toko Ray. So basically, as in the other books, the Cooper kids and their father, who is an archaeologist, are traveling the world, and he's a biblical archaeologist, so it's a Christian young adult series, or more middle grade series, so there's those. I would say, as a whole, I would give the series a 6 or a 7. Some of the books are better than others. I think I liked this one, and maybe this one the most, but you kind of have to like read them together. They're super short, as you can see. There's like hardly any, they're not very big, so they're really easy and quick to read, even if you're reading like 2 of them at a time. If you have young teenagers or, you know, preteens, that kind of age, I'd say have them check them out. Start with the first book in the series, and that's that. So also, the book I'm looking forward to reading, I just started Tom Clancy. So this is part of the Jack Ryan series. This one is written by Don Bentley, because obviously it had to be written by someone else, as Tom Clancy had passed away several years ago. But out of all the authors that write the Jack Ryan books, I think Don Bentley is my favorite. So I'm super excited to read this one and see what happens in it. If you haven't read Don Bentley, you should check out his original series, the Matt Drake series. I forget what the name of the first book is, but I will go ahead and put that up here for you. Those are amazing. I love it. The Matt Drake books, I'd give like a 9 out of 10 and say definitely check them out. So I'm looking forward to reading this. I'll let you know how it is when I'm done with it. And until next time, let's get reading.